Good morning, everybody. So now I'm going to discuss the new chapter, that is elements and its types. So you know that the matter is divided into group, living and non-living group. In non-living group, the matter is again divided into pure substances and impure substances. So a substance of definite composition which has consistent properties throughout is called pure substances. Clear? So what is the basic property of this pure substances? That they have the definite composition. This is very important. In pure substances there is a definite composition, and because of this the properties has what? The properties is different from the others. Clear? Like when we talk about the pure substance, then they have the definite set of physical and chemical properties. They have fixed melting and boiling point, and pure substances have characteristic color, odor and taste. Okay, so pure substances are of two types, elements and compound. So first in this video I'll discuss about the elements and its types. So an element is defined as a pure substances. So pure substances is what? The two examples are there, element and compound. So element is defined as a pure substance made up of only one kind of atoms, and that cannot be converted into anything simpler than itself, by which means by physical or chemical process. Clear? So once again, that an element is defined as a pure substance made up of only one kind of atoms that cannot be converted into anything simpler than itself by any physical or chemical process. Okay, so each element has its, we can say that each element has its own unique properties. For example, a gold bar is made up of what? Only gold atoms. Okay, so elements are the basic substances from which all other substances are made. I think this point must have become very clear, because gold bar is made up of only gold atoms. So according to this we can say that elements are the basic substances from which all other substances are made. And so on the basis of properties, elements classified into four types. Clear? First is metals, second one is non-metals, third one is metalloid, and fourth one is noble gases. Noble gases also called as what? Inert gases. Now next is, most of the elements known to us are what? Metals. For example, like gold, silver, iron, copper, aluminium, zinc, magnesium, lead, calcium, they all are what? They all are the examples of metals. So now we will discuss about the properties of metals. So first, metals, the first property of metals are, the metals are usually what? Shiny and hard. Shiny means it has luster, it can shine. An exception is what? Exception is sodium. Sodium is a metal, but sodium is not hard. Sodium is what? Soft metal. Okay. Now next is, metals are solids. Clear? The second property of metal is that the metals are solid except mercury. Mercury is what? Mercury is a liquid metal. Always remember that mercury is what? Mercury is a liquid metal. Then the next property is that the metals are ductile. Ductile means what? They can be drawn into thin wires. Okay, so like copper is metal, you get the copper wire. Silver is metal, you get the silver wire. And then gold is metal, you get the gold wire also, and that wire is used to make different jewelries and for decorating the saris and suits also. Okay, now next property is Metals are malleable. Malleable means what? They can be beaten into sheets. Clear? Beaten into thin sheets. Exception is zinc. Yes, zinc is an exception. So all the exceptions are very, very important. So zinc is brittle. Generally what? They are malleable, but zinc is brittle. Brittle means what? On beating it breaks into pieces. Clear? And this property, metals are malleable, they can be beaten into thin sheets. That is why you get the aluminium boxes. Clear? The best example is that aluminium is what? Aluminium is metal, and that can be beaten into thin sheets, and those sheets are used to make the boxes. Those sheets are used to make the cupboard. Clear? Now next property is that metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. And exception is what? Tungsten. Tungsten is not a good conductor of heat and electricity, and that is why tungsten is used where? In the 100 power bulb. You must have seen tungsten wire is there. Okay, and metals are good conductors of heat and electricity means what? Copper. The best example is copper wire. So copper is metal, and it is what? Good conductor of heat and electricity, and that is why in the house wiring copper wire is used. Silver is the best, silver is the best to conduct the heat, to conduct the electricity, but silver is very costly, it cannot be used. That is why copper is cheaper also, and it is a good conductor of heat and electricity also. That is why for house wiring copper wire is used. Now the next property is metals have high melting and boiling points. Clear? Metals have what? High melting and boiling points. And the next property is that metals produce a specific sound when struck, and this is we use a word that is called the sonorous sound. So metals produce a specific sound means what? Sonorous sounds. Okay, so this all is about the properties of metals. Now we will discuss about the properties of non-metals. So first that now, one thing is very important here, that the properties of non-metals are just opposite of properties of metals. Clear? So, and when we'll compare and study, then it will be very easy to learn also, and very easy to store in the mind also. So the first property is that these are elements with dull surfaces. Clear? In case of metals, what we have studied, that the metals are shiny. But what about the non-metals? Non-metals are the elements with dull surfaces. Clear? Exception is there, iodine and carbon. Clear? In the form of diamond and graphite. Iodine and carbon in the form of what? Diamond and graphite. They shine. Clear? So iodine also shine, carbon also shine, but not all the form of carbon. Which form of carbon? Yes, diamond and graphite. Okay, next property is that they are less in number as compared to metals. And what we studied about the metals, that most of the elements known to us are metals. So this is the difference. Now next property is non-metals are either soft solids or gases. Clear? So when we talk about the soft solids like sulfur, phosphorus, iodine, or gases, when we talk about then oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, chlorine. But the exception is also here. What is the exception? Bromine. Bromine is the only liquid non-metal. Clear? So if the question is which one is the only liquid non-metal, you will write the answer bromine. And if the question is which one is the only metal, only liquid metal, then you will write what? Mercury. Clear? Now next property is that it is related with this only, that carbon exists as what? Soft solid like charcoal, soot, coal and graphite, and hard solid like diamond. So carbon exists in both the form, as a soft form also and as a hard form also. And as a soft form it is present like charcoal, soot, coal and graphite, and hard form like diamond. Okay. Now next is next property of a non-metal. So next property is what? Non-metals cannot be drawn into wires or beaten into thin sheets. Okay, so this is also the property of non-metals, that non-metals cannot be drawn into wires or beaten into thin sheets. But what about the metals? Metals can be drawn into wires and beaten into thin sheets. Okay, now the next property. Non-metals are mostly brittle in nature. But what about the metal? Because when you compare and study, things becomes very clear in the mind, and it becomes very easy to store also. So what we studied about the metals, that metals are malleable. But what about the non-metals? Non-metals are mostly what? Brittle in nature. And other property we studied about the metal, that metals produce a specific sound, and which word we use for that sound? Sonorous sound. Clear? But what about the non-metal? They do not produce, here THEY should be here. Okay, they do not produce sound when struck. So this is the property of a non-metal. Now next, that non-metals are what? Bad conductors of heat and electricity. Exception is carbon. Carbon in the form of graphite is a good conductor of electricity. Remember, all the exceptions are very, very important. Okay. So what we studied about the metals, that the metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. But what about the non-metals? Non-metals are bad conductor of heat and electricity. But the exception is always there. What is the exception here? Carbon. In which form? Graphite form. Clear? Carbon in graphite form is a good conductor of electricity. Now next property, that metals have low melting and boiling point except diamond and graphite. Always remember, exception is very important. Generally what we studied about the metals, that the metals have high melting and boiling point. But what about the non-metals? Non-metals have low melting and boiling points. Okay. Now next is metalloids. Okay. So all the properties of metals and non-metals I have discussed, and I have compared also, so that it becomes very easy for you all to store in the mind, to learn it and to understand it. Clear? Now I am going to discuss the next type of element, that is the metalloids. So metals I have discussed, non-metals I have discussed, and the third one is metalloids. Metalloids are what? Metalloids are the elements which are neither metals nor non-metals. They show some properties of what? Metals, and some properties of non-metals. Clear? So metalloids are what? Metalloids are neither metals nor non-metals, and they show some properties of metals and some properties of non-metals. Okay, metalloids are generally solids, and examples of metalloids are what? Boron, silicon, then germanium, tellurium and polonium. These are the examples of metalloid. Next is inert gases, or we can say noble gases. Okay, this is the fourth type of element. So noble gases are what? These are gaseous elements that do not react chemically with other elements. Okay, so these are gaseous elements that do not react chemically with other elements, and that is why they are called as what? Inert gases. Okay, and as a result they are known as inert gases or noble gases also. They are found in air only in traces, means what? Very small amount, and total number of inert gases are 6, means they are 6 in numbers. And what are they? These 6 inert gases: helium, neon, krypton, xenon and radon. Okay, so this much is only for this class. Thank you very much. More points are there, more topics are there, that I will discuss in the next class. Till then, have a nice day. Thank you very much.